but the defensive staff understanding that, hey, we're going to go fast. You can get a 3 and out now and not burn a minute off that clock too. So I think you spend a lot of time. There's my daughter at the pool back behind us. That's an advantage to being at UCF. Trayvon is having a pool in your backyard. But that's a slight recruiting pitch there. But I think understanding that you can go 3 and out kind of fast at times. At the same time, I think what it forces you to do is spend a ton of time on your series starters and making sure that you don't put the defense in a really, really tough spot. And understanding that the first down of each drive is really what gets you going. I think Coach Campbell helped me really understand that at Iowa State. We spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. How do you get the first down so you can get going? But, I think what you end up with when you sit down and watch like what Coach Heupel's done here over the last couple of years and going back to his time at Missouri, I think you sacrifice the occasional 3 and out for the ability to create really big plays at times, both in the run game and pass game, by just simply going fast. And so to me, when you try to combine both, if you can use a tight end and you can be really good in your series starters to be able to get the first down, I think you can have a lot of success. Fundamentally, the thing it starts with for us offensively is how you literally rep the ability to go fast. We have 2 managers that are in referee shirts that they are constantly spotting the ball. And even if you're not in a drive-it situation, even if you're just in a 7-on-7 where you're bringing the ball back to where it was, even if you're just doing inside run where it's a controlled tempo, having the ability to, once the ball's in play, whether the ball was thrown down the field, thrown to the sideline, whether the ball was run inside, making sure that the guy that has the ball is always running it back into the umpire. And I say that not tossing it to the umpire, not getting it, if it's on the sideline, getting it to the side judge. But if you get it to the ump, the guy that's got to actually put the ball down, the ball's going to get spotted faster. There's less chance of the ball getting dribbled around on the ground. Inevitably, you throw it to the side judge or the back judge. He's going to fumble the ball. It's going to take him a second to throw it in, hence slowing the entire operation down. So we practice it that way from day one. I think it's absolutely huge. You could see it in the TV copies. You can really see it. But once the ball is caught, it's getting run right back. Once the ball is run, it's getting right back to that ump so that the ball can get spotted. The rule in college is if you sub, they sub. They'll hold the ball to let you sub. And the key to the whole thing is we won't sub unless it's a total situational deal. Red zone where we have to get in a different personnel, or third down where you've got to get in a different personnel, whether it's 3rd and short and 3rd and long, and you've got to get a play that you can convert. The down is then more important than the tempo. But again, going back to the tight end play, if you can have a versatile guy that can play flexed out, in the box, attached, and primarily flexed out, then you don't have to ever switch personnels. And that's I think the key. We can recruit, obviously, so it's a little bit easier to get to that point where you can have a tight end or several tight ends that can do it for you. But having the ability to do that. The other guy that could be really versatile for you is if you have a slot that can also play in the backfield and allow you to get to some open 20 sets, some 21 personnel sets that can kind of be a really, really versatile guy for you. We're lucky here. We've got a guy that can do that, try to recruit a guy to this system that can do both. I think that can make you more multiple without ever having to sub personnels. And our guys know starts with running that ball back in, or at least getting it close enough to where I can toss it to him where I know he's the one that's going to spot it. And they know as long as the ball's in play and there's no dead ball, there's no subbing. So they also know if a guy, ran a go route of some sort and it was an incomplete ball, it's a dead ball, he's burnt out, he can tap himself out, and his sub is going right in for us to be able to go and exchange it fast and go with it. But that's the only time they know that they can sub. So it's a little bit, again, having an offensive head coach, I think that mentality shifts a little bit to where, like, you're not necessarily shown a sign of weakness if you got to go. We'd rather have you fresh as we can to be able to we'd rather have a fresh backup than a burnout starter in terms of being exhausted. I think those are the two things that probably help us the most in terms of just the structure of how we play fast. And we're trying to snap that ball every 16 to 18 seconds. With that, then comes how do you call it? How do you structure it? How do you organize it? I know Coach Pendleton and I talked earlier in the week, it's all got to be able to be signaled and relayed a lot faster than even at times I thought we were used to. We've gotten it narrowed down now to where pretty much everything is a one word call, and pretty much everything is built in, meaning in the drop back or play action game, the protections are built into the concept week to week. In the run game, the RPOs are built in to the run game by week to week as well. Having the flexibility that if you ever wanted to change it throughout a game, you can obviously call it in addition to the run, but trying to build it in as much as you can. And, and I think structuring it, starting with the run game to where every run has a one word with it, right and left being different words, and 2x2 and 3x1 formations having their own words. So it being built in. Same thing with the pass game, being able to build into one word, the route concept, 2x2, 3x1, and or building the protection into it. And so there a lot will fall on the quarterback in terms of the protection being built in, at the same time allowing the quarterback a week essentially to understand what you're trying to do with the protection, and if he understands why and how based on the concept, trying to sync it all together. I guess I should go back and say, I think the biggest thing that allows you to play fast beyond all the operational, the signals, the words, what allows you to play fast is to keep it all small, and not do a whole lot. I feel like the simpler you can keep it, the smaller the game plan can be, the easier, obviously, it is for the kids to learn it as you go. But for the kids to understand it on a given Monday, getting ready to play on a Saturday, for you guys on a Monday being able to play on a Friday, limiting what you do and how many you do of each. And obviously that's up to each coach. We really try to limit, and we have a cap number of everything we do, understanding that your situational stuff is critically important, and understanding that you may do some new things on third down, or you may do some new things in the red zone based on what the defense is giving you. But having the ability to narrow it all down and be able to play fast because the kids know what you're doing. And I know that's easier said than done, and I know that's easy to say in a clinic type setting. I think probably the best thing that we do that Coach Heupel forces us to do is to genuinely keep it small.
Coach, I want to hop in with a question about
Yeah.
that. Uh, so I know you probably don't want to give away your number, but for a high school team in a given week, what do you think is let's just say base down runs and passes, what would you cap that out for a high school team?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I coached high school for a year. I think I don't know how much totally different it is. We are really capped at, we get these guys for 20 hours a week. So it's not like we have them all day. It's not like the pros. Um, I, I think every team is probably a little bit different. It all just depends on what your kids can handle. Um, I also think how you install it in the off season is critically important. And I'm not trying to avoid your question. I'll kind of get back to it here, but I think it all just depends on how much time you spend in the winter and the spring and the summer. We do our installation in the winter once, in the spring once, in the summer twice, and then in fall camp again. So throughout a given year, you've got it really 5 times. Installs 1 through whatever you feel like you need. And so, obviously we have spring ball here, and we've got fall camp. You guys have fall camp and don't necessarily get the luxury of spring, but
Here in Ohio, so I'd say for most of us, about everyone on here that I know has two-way players that go both ways rather, and we get 10 coaching days in the summer, and then we have 2 weeks of two-a-days in the fall. So that's about how much time we have, just to give you a frame of reference.
absolutely. Now, right, and you got guys that are playing basketball and running track, and so it is a little bit different. I guess to me, it's whatever your kids can handle that you think you'll use throughout a season. And I say that very openly, like how many runs do you need? Well, if you're running a certain amount of RPOs with them, like how many versions of inside zone do you need? How many, are you going to run outside zone as well as inside zone? With as much odd structure as you're getting, outside zone has become a really prevalent play. How many gap schemes do you run? I don't think you can be, a master of a lot of different things. So can you narrow that part of it down? Can you shrink down your run game to whatever you think you guys are good at, to where in your 10 coaching days in the summer and in 2 weeks of fall camp, your kids can learn it. Now that means outside of that, you're not going to create 3 new runs a week for a particular defense. I think if you can limit the run game down to whatever you feel like philosophically fits you, then the pass game is where you can be a little bit more creative, understanding that how many concepts do you need? How many drop back concepts do you need? How many play action concepts do you need? And how many quick game concepts do you need? And then do you do any movement pass stuff? So that's a really good question. I guess to me, somewhere between 12 and 14 runs total in a game, and normal down a distance, probably 10 runs total. Knowing you need a couple of open set runs and you need some closed set runs, and then somewhere around 10 to 14 pass concepts. I think if you think of it like that, where there's about somewhere no more than 30 total plays in a normal down and distance situation, knowing that for third down you're going to need a couple of wrinkles, knowing that as you get tighter in the red zone you're going to need a couple of wrinkles, your runs can possibly carry over. That way you're capped at somewhere around 40 to 50 plays, 40 to 48 plays in a game plan.
Would you consider, say, running inside zone out of 21 personnel? Would you consider that the same as running it out of 10 personnel, or would you call that a completely different play within your 30 plays, let's say, that you want to run on a given week? Are you talking just like straight plays or schemes?
Straight plays.
Okay.
Because again, and it all depends on how you call it. If for us the run or the formation, the run, and the RPO are built into one, then that's one play. And so if it's an open set, it's one. If it's a closed set, it's the second, even though it could be inside zone. But because the RPO, we're trying to build it into the run. If there's any tag off of it, inside zone, cutoff inside zone, insert inside zone, bypass, those are three different plays. Open set inside zone with out of 3-by, and open set open set inside zone out of 2-by. Well, there you are. You're at 5 at that point. And the reason I say that is because in order to be able to go with one word calls for all of it. Now remember, one word to the right, one word to the left, like there's a little bit of memorization to it. And you got your 10 days. It's maximizing those 10 days to be able to build it all in and teach it. And so those, to answer your question, they would all be, it's not schemes, it's actual plays. And, I think if you sit down and for me, I had to do it when I first got here, you kind of get to the end of the week. And I think the one thing Coach Campbell at Iowa State did a phenomenal job of was at the end of the week, it was like, hey, what's really good? Like what's coming to mind right now on a Friday morning that's really good, that's been good, that our kids understand, that our kids are bought in on, like what's really good. Well, you put it up on a game plan or on paper or on a board. Well, that's what you're going to call. So whether you have 100 things on a game plan or not, you're going to go into a game and we're running somewhere around 95 plays a game. So you run inside zone 5 times. Like you can only run so many plays, and you got to figure if a third of them are situational plays, then you're talking about 50 to 60 plays that you need. The good ones that are working, you're going to repeat over and over again. And so I think it forces you to kind of reverse thinking. It forces you on the front end to say, yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know if I would call that. Well, if it's pretty good, you're not going to call it, then don't run it. And I think if you go into the week with the thought of, I got 14 runs, it's going to force you to find the best 14 rather than put 25 on there and not ever get to 10 or 11 or 12 of them in a game. Understanding that then your foundation has to be really, really strong. Again, kind of goes back to what I was saying. Foundationally, then can you be an inside zone, outside zone, power counter? Can you have a million different schemes? Probably not if you're going to try to really, really limit it to what you're doing. And as you watch the film and you figure out where you want to attack, you kind of go with the plays that you think can attack the weakness of a defense, and then always having a counter off of it. Again, if your RPO game is really, really strong and you've got really good answers and your quarterback understands what the answers are, then you should have an outlet to everything that you could possibly get as you build the run game. So meaning you should have answers in everything you're doing. Obviously you got to execute, but your answers should be built into that point. So I guess I don't have a great answer for how many should be in a high school game plan. I think if you look at your previous years, structure of what the game, how many plays you had on offense in a game, how many situational plays you had on offense in a game, and figure out how many plays you actually would call in a game. And I think you kind of base it off of that. If you had success and you realize, man, I only called 30 plays, well, then maybe that should be your cap. And I think it'll be different for everybody. If you got a bunch of kids that maybe aren't two-way guys, then if you're at a bigger program where you can kind of two platoon it, then maybe you could do a little bit more. If you got a bunch of guys that are playing both ways that you can't overload, then shrink the game plan down even more. Because if you can't teach it in a week, by Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest, if they don't have it, you're in trouble anyways. So, I think limiting the plan is the easiest way to be able to play fast. And with that, in that same breath, is limiting your installation throughout a particular day. If you've got 10 days in the summer, then making sure that your installation throughout those 10 days is really smart in how it's put in, meaning conceptually how it's built throughout a day. Like for us, I think the one thing we do really, really well is when we install, and as we built our spring install, we were lucky enough to get a third of our practices in this spring before all of this happened. But building a spring install one, or for you guys would be your summer allotment day one, that when you build that install one, that's all you're doing that day is whatever's in install one. When you go to two, there may be some carryover from 1 to 2, perhaps your foundational deals, but then only running what you're doing, only running whatever you're installing on day 2. Day 3, only running whatever you're doing on day 3, with a possible focus on whether it's day 3, day 4, getting into your third down plan or getting into your red zone plan, or at least introducing some ideas there. But only doing those things on that installation day, so that way your kids can only hone in and focus on whatever you're doing that day. I think that was a big improvement, at least for me, to be able to say, this is all we're doing, so the kids can kind of hone in and focus on just whatever you're putting in that day, rather than having to remember more than, going back 4 days, man, what did we install on day 1? Worry about install 5 today. That way, by the time you get to the end of the 10 days for you, you at least have a really good idea of what are our kids good at, what do they understand, what do they not understand, whatever you got to feel like you got to spend more time on in fall camp. But I think condensing that part of it down is absolutely huge. So that part, I think when you build it that way, starting with the run game, where you build it with one-word calls, with the RPO built in, teaching the RPO separately as you're putting them in, as they're built into the runs, but teaching the concepts of the RPOs. That way, if you had to go in the middle of a game and change an RPO from a bubble to a switch cross block bubble, or to slants or hitches or whatever it may be, you can easily just tag it on and add it if you feel like you need to attack a defense a separate way. And then at the same time, figuring out what has hurt you, and obviously making sure you've got answers to that as well. So from a structure standpoint, that's probably, I don't know if that hits all of it. Is there any questions on that part of it?
Yeah, I have a question on just real fast. And guys, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll be sure to get to them, and we'll make sure we ask Coach here. But my question is, I know you talk about the RPO game and each RPO being built into the run. Does that translate to having, say you have 30 runs in a game plan, does that translate to having 30 different RPOs? Will you repeat some of them? And then, how many actual RPO concepts will you carry into a season?
Yeah, so not necessarily 30 different RPOs. Whatever RPOs you feel like can attack what you're trying to, what you think you're doing. In terms of the actual number of RPOs, I think when you include the man beater part of it, any rub type concepts that you'll use on a third and short, or that you may use down in the red zone. It's a good question in terms of how many total RPOs there are. Probably somewhere between 14 and 20. in terms of what RPOs are tagged throughout a game plan. Again, I think it totally depends if it's a big man team, things that could possibly beat, obviously beat man. You've got some RPOs that are pre-snap reads, some that are post-snap reads. We run a lot of option game on the outside and on the inside. Those are always alive. In terms of the option game, I would say somewhere between 14 and 20. And then I think having the ability to have pre-snap RPOs and post-snap RPOs built into a particular run, especially in your 3-by-1 run game. But if you're going to go into a game with 30 runs, which is a lot, but having, you can certainly have a bunch of the same RPOs built in, just the different runs, as long as your quarterback can understand, this is what's with this one. I think that's hard if you're going to RPO a bunch to have 30 runs in a game. I think that's limiting it to a reasonable number where your quarterback can understand what you do. Now, if you go into the year and certain RPOs are built into the runs, and it's pretty much a mainstay of how you do it inside zone with 3-by-1 inside zone with bubble. If that's a huge thing you do and it's always going to be that, then you can kind of count it as, man, that run is in, but it doesn't really count because these kids know what it is and it's kind of always in. Our outside zone pin and pull scheme is kind of always in. And it's got a built-in RPO on the backside. Quarterback knows his backside edge is protected. He can always pull it and throw the single. I think you kind of get a feel as you go for, man, this is a staple, this is not, or based on what you've done in the past, this is a staple and this is not. But no, they don't necessarily all have to be different if you've got that many runs. And I guess it depends. If you feel like, man, it's too much on our kids to build it in for the week, then call it. And it's one more word, but at least you can help them get the quarterback to trigger on, okay, man, this is a post-snap read or this is a pre-snap read for me. And if you got a young guy, you may have to call it. You hope that you get to a point where you don't have to call it. The other piece of it is having the RPOs as touches, doubled up as touches as well, meaning, man, like, can I take something off the quarterback right now and I like our matchup on the field backer or the nickel? Man, can I just call a 3-man RPO out there as a screen or as an immediate touch right now, just to get the ball out of his hand quick, knowing that you feel good about the matchup blocking-wise on the outside, and you want to just get rid of the ball and take one off the quarterback. I think as we installed, there was some things. We've got a sophomore quarterback that started almost every game a year ago now as a freshman. I think I tried to put a lot on him early, and then it was like, man, like, can we take some off of him to just let him get the ball out of his hand quick and let him get some confidence going. I think if you got an older kid and you don't feel like you need to do that as much, there's probably some merit there to it. But does that answer your question, Trayvon?
Yes, it does, absolutely.
Coach, I'll piggyback on that.
I have another question. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Okay. Do you guys use certain words for pre-snap RPOs and post-snap RPOs, or does kids just know, hey, your hitch concept's post-snap and your bubble concept's pre-snap? How do you kind of package those for the quarterback?
Yeah, they're built into the RPO itself. They know this is a pre-snap RPO and this is a post-snap RPO, and it's built that way from day one. And then that way, when you add it to a run, it's built into the name of the RPO. If you wanted it to be a post-snap where you've always done it as a pre-snap, bubble, for example, you want to bubble as a post-snap read, or like I was saying, you want to be able to run a delayed bubble as a post-snap read, call it something else. If you want to just get the ball out there right now and cross-block bubble, it's a different word because it's just an immediate touch play. So all different words as you go, as you build it. And then, like I said, if you build it into the run, then you never even call it. It's just built into the run for that week. And they understand, man, this is my pre-snap read on this side. This is my post-snap read on the other side. And I'm rolling with it. That way you've got a blitz answer. If you want to build a blitz answer in, and then a post-snap read of some sort in. I think obviously having blitz answers for us is absolutely critical. So building the run game with the RPOs that way.
My only other question really right now is, and then I'll let you get on with your presentation area, is talking about first downs, the importance of getting a first down before you get in the tempo. How do you feel? What's your thoughts on that? I know, a lot of us having two-way players, the last thing we want to do is turn the ball back over quick and have our defense out on the field for majority of the game and losing time of possession, even though, I know at your level it translates a little differently because your guys aren't going both ways. But if our guys are on the field on defense the whole entire game, I feel like it limits our ability to have that explosive play on the other end.
Yeah, so two things to that. Time of possession, I think, is maybe a stat that, and Mike Leach said it, but I think points per possession are probably a lot more important than time of possession. I think what you're doing with your possessions instead of how long your possessions are probably a really, really important way to look at it. I think if you worry about time of possession and that dictates your play calling, I think that could be an issue. I think if you feel totally outmatched as a defense, understanding that, man, like, we got to keep the ball away from them, that's probably a different train of thought. The only way to win the game, is obviously to play complementary offense and defense. So understanding the challenges of your defense. But if you worry about the time of possession more than you worry about actually scoring points, I think it's really, really tough. I think the most important thing that you can do is score as many points as you can without being reckless. And I say that not in a joking way. I say it meaning wholeheartedly. You got to run the football to be able to win football games, but not being reckless with just saying, I'm just going to run the football. Obviously understanding box counts, and that's why you want to have RPOs built in to be able to address overloaded boxes. And if you're getting a particular look that you can't handle, being able to get the quarterback out of trouble and getting to the right play. But I think as a whole, to answer your question, as far as drive starters, we spent a lot of time on one, studying P and 10 and possession and 10 and understanding what defensive coordinators are doing, whether they're going to sit back and kind of let you feel it out, or whether they're going to attack you and try to get you off rhythm on to get to second down off rhythm, and being able to have answers. We've gone as far as a lot of the time, if it's like, man, I just don't have a feel for how this defensive coordinator thinks, to giving the quarterback 2 plays as you come up and building a system into where you've got 2 plays as you come up to the line of scrimmage on P and 10, knowing 2 things. One, you don't have time anymore in college football to change the play at the line of scrimmage as a play caller on P and 10 anymore, with them giving a 25-second running clock as soon as that possession changes. And I don't know if it's that way in Ohio anymore or now or not. That changed a couple of years ago here and has been an issue for teams trying to get out on the field, trying to get a play called and then potentially change it. So putting it on the quarterback and giving him 2 options, man, here's your zone answer, here's your man answer, call the zone answer, let him check to the man answer, or here's your man answer, here's your blitz answer, letting him check to the blitz answer if he sees blitz, and having a mechanic built in to that, but really studying the heck out of P and 10s. P and 10s when you're up, P and 10s when you're down. in terms of what the defensive coordinator's train of thought is, but actually studying it and putting in a lot of time, not grouping P&10s into normal downs, but then also pulling them out and really studying what a defensive coordinator does. How does he start a drive, and how can you attack it? Or how can I get the ball as fast as I can out of the quarterback's hand, whether it's a run or a throw, to get the thing started into somebody you can count on's hands to get you in a second and manageable right away to be able to get the thing started. Really putting a lot of thought into that rather than just calling a play to get the thing going. Does that answer your question, Trayvon?
Yeah, absolutely. Got another question here from one of our listeners. He said he's wanting to know what man coverage does to your RPO game. Do you carry a lot of man beaters, thinking, I know at the high school level, man coverage is kind of everyone's answer for RPO, especially at our level. So, do you carry a lot of man beaters? Anything outside of rub routes, or, is it just really trying to create separation at the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, I guess depends what kind of man. If you're going to get true outside leverage, man free, having the ability to attack it with something as simple as slants, and being able to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand. If it's inside leverage man and you feel like you've got to be able to go outside, then some switch routes to be able to get the ball to the boundary or field, but getting it out into the flat and letting your guys run away from the defender. Some rubs, but primarily in and out breakers off of leverage, and being able to get the ball to those guys. But honestly, having the ability to be able to attack vertically in the RPO game, as long as you can protect your edges, and that's, again, going back to having a tight end in there that you feel like you can somehow maneuver to where you can match up and protect edges long enough to let the quarterback get the ball out of his hand. But the option game for us is a really big man answer. And by option game, I mean inside or outside option game, letting those guys make decisions at 6 yards and executing them at 8, whether it's a go or a post or a fine grass route or a comeback back to the ball. But at the shorter distances, for us, somewhere between 8 and 10 yards to be able to squeeze the ball and get the ball out on an option type concept. We kind of live for man in that regard.
Coach, another one of our listeners chimed in here. He said, understanding the pace at which you play, do you guys script plays? If so, being such a fast tempo team, how many plays do you script?
Yeah, if the question is, do we script plays to start a game, then yeah, you do, just to be able to understand somewhere between the first 10 and 15 plays. If you're going to try to present different looks, I want to present some different looks so that I can see what the matchups are going to be and what the adjustments are. I think when you go fast, that in itself is creating its own issues, and you want to see how teams are going to address it. Playing in really wide splits is an issue in itself, and you want to see how teams are going to attack it. So you do, but I think the fact that if your game plan is super limited, where you've already cut it down to a point of what you really, really think you're going to run and what you really, really like, I think you're kind of creating your script in terms of your game plan. For us, the way we call plays, a lot of it is dependent on where the ball ends up in terms of where your guys are. Because what you're trying to do as a play caller is create the movement or negate the movement of your guys in terms of lining up. So what I mean by that is your next play call is in a lot of ways determined by where the guys ended up from the previous play. So as the play caller, understanding where the play is going in the pass game, having an idea of where the play is going, where are guys going to end up, and allowing the next play call to keep you in a similar set in terms of not moving a bunch of guys all over the place. And again, that goes back to the play caller having an understanding of where the guys ended up so that you aren't moving guys all over the place. So you can script them as long as when you script them, you understand that you're going to have to come off that script or be able to go with some formation into the boundary things to not have to move guys all over the place. So script 10 and then be super ready to come off the script in terms of, man, it's not necessarily, we didn't end up getting the ball where I thought we would, but being able to call the next play without moving your guys all over the place. So I think when you're going really fast and the way we play, the way we structure it, the scripting part is already kind of done throughout the week in terms of not necessarily saying I got to get to these 10 plays first. What you want to script, and to me, is your drive starters to be able to say, all right, man, this is my PN10. This is what happened. What's my second down call right now to be able to get yourself to third manageable and get the thing going?
It's a great answer. I guess what's the word I'm looking for here? With that being said, I kind of lost my train of thought here, but we'll just go into our next question. I'll come back to it. But one of our other listeners here, as far as play calling in a really quick tempo offense, he's asking, is there anything that you look for making calls? I mean, is it all pre-snap alignment, or is it, some post-snap rotation just to be able to get the next play call in fast?
Yeah. So with a majority of our RPO game and a majority of our pass game consisting of options in terms of short options, deep options for the outside guys or the perimeter guys. What I'm looking for is, one, how do we run the football? So am I getting a favorable box or not? And I think for the quarterback, keeping it really simple formationally. So him being able to understand we're in 2-by or we're in 3-by, and what is the structure that I'm seeing? Am I seeing a box that's loaded, or am I seeing a box that's not? How simple can I keep it for him? And for him not to have to see more than just 1 to 2 things to understand, man, we can run the ball into this look, or I know I'm going to have to get rid of the ball in this look. That's one. I'm always looking for how can we run the football. And if you get into it and the box is not favorable, then how can we protect the quarterback to get the ball down the field? And so I'm always looking at what is the goal of what they're trying to do. Is it load the box and stop the run? Then we're going to throw it. If it's, man, we're going to sit back here and protect anything going over our heads, then we're going to run the ball. We'll run the ball every single play if we can. At the end of the day, you want to be balanced, but beyond that, you want to just attack what they give you. And so being able to have answers built in, I think as the play caller, the priority to the whole thing is being able to, and I just said this, is being able to call it and understanding where your guys end up and not moving them all over the place because you want to get to a particular play. Having it so limited that you can, in terms of the play calls, to where you can keep guys where they are and not move them. Potentially move the tight end, potentially move the slot, but not have to move a bunch of bodies to get what you want. Now, at the high school level, with the hashes being a little bit wider, you got to be confident in having a formation into the boundary plan to be able to say, okay, we like these plays formation in the boundary. I don't have to move anybody, and we could just stay, whether it's 2-by or 3-by. And I like being able to be in 3-by into the boundary, and I'm totally comfortable with that. What are my answers there? What do I want to do out of that? Am I going to get a single matchup to the field then? And I like the matchup. Is that field safety going to play over there? If he is, well, then we should have a clean box to run the ball to the field. Is he going to play down in the box? And I should have an easy matchup one-on-one to the field. And that's what we're trying to constantly do, is put the field backer in conflict. put the boundary and the field safety in conflict, and formationally being simple enough, again, as simple as it can be, to be able to call it without moving guys all over the place. And I think philosophically it's being able to keep your outside guys as they are, them being able to learn the concepts from a left and right perspective, and not having a true X or a true Z, and keeping those guys out there as your outside receivers, and then moving in the slot and the tight end as you need to. But again, are you moving them to move them, or are you moving them because you want to create some sort of matchup? If you're moving them to create some sort of matchup, awesome. If you're moving them just because you want to have your formation to the field rather than the boundary, does it make sense? Is that what you want to do? And if it doesn't, then keep them where they are and run the next play as fast as you possibly can. And maybe formation into the boundary is the plan. Can the will linebacker come out there and cover? Can the will linebacker play in space? If he can't, or they're going to move the nickel over or the field backer over, then, man, does that open up some stuff to the field for you? I think it's just figuring, you talk about scripting plays. That's what your scripting plays is, to see how they'll play your formation into the boundary. And I think at the high school level, that's an even bigger deal, because now you can have your field single receiver even wider, in terms of by himself out there. Excuse me. And so do you have a guy out there that you feel really good about? And then are you getting the ball to a particular hash to be able to get a single with that one-on-one guy? And I think that's what it comes down to as a play caller, is understanding where the play ends up so that you can call the next play as fast as feasibly possible. And I think that's the science behind it, is being able to call the play. And like I said, limiting your formations to the point where you're able to call your plays without ever moving these guys around. And I think that's what you have to philosophically figure out, man, is it more important for me to get this specific guy over here? Well, on third down, it might be. In the red zone, it might be. But on first and second down, is it critically important? If it's not, then don't move them. Call the next play and let's roll. So I think that answers the question.
Yes. Kind of piggybacking off that, Coach. I know you've been talking about, the one-word tags and everything being built in that. I know you talk about the RPO being built in. Is the formation built into those one-word tags also?
It is. Yep, it is. Okay. And again, being able to limit it to be able to do it. But yeah, absolutely. Formation.
And, going into a game, obviously, would you recommend being able to have all your formations FTB, or would you be able to have set formations FTB and just carry a few and be able to be verse out of those?
Yeah, I think structurally, if your outside guys stay as they are and don't move, now you're talking about moving the tight end, moving the slot, and your running back if you're going to get into any empty stuff. So no, what to answer your question, what do you like FTB? Is there particular things you want to be an FTB, or you're okay being an FTB to do? If there isn't, then go ahead and move, obviously move the slot now, move the tight end as you need to be able to snap the ball. Just understanding you're giving up somewhere between 4 and 6 seconds to move them. And are you willing to give up the 4 and 6 seconds to move them? Or once you get them there, can you keep it going out of the same set so that you can just play and play and play? Because remember, and I've coached defense before as well. What's every defensive coordinator screaming at his guys to do is run to the ball, run to the ball, run to the ball, run to the ball. Well, do you need your backside receiver on a run to the other side to chase that backside safety down? Or can he hang over there knowing that the very next play, that corner just sprinted across the field, I'm going to go right back to him? And does he need to sprint over there, or does he not? And I think that's a philosophical thing that probably we can talk about as we go. But just understanding, what do I need those guys to do? Because to be honest with you, in a lot of ways, it's about saving legs and being able to get down the field with those outside guys, with your perimeter guys, without burning them out. So I think that's probably, something we should hit on. Like if you're running an outside run to the right, and your single receiver to the left has a hitch as an RPO, as a blitz answer, as a cover one high answer, he just ran a hitch. Well, does he need to run down, cover down, and sprint his butt off to cut off the backside safety? The old school train of thought would tell you, man, that'd be great. The new school train of thought would tell you the corner just ran to the other side to try to get in on a tackle because that's what every defensive coordinator in the country is yelling them to do. Well, that's awesome. I'm just going to hang right here. I'm going to find the ball. I know the ball got spotted fast. And then let's run an option route to him one-on-one and see what happens. That corner just sprinted 50 yards across the field, sprinted back, got the call, maybe, got lined up, and I am running. I literally did nothing on the last play, and now I got as much juice as I possibly can, and now I'm running an option route off that corner. I'm stopping or I'm going or I'm posting or I'm finding grass off that corner. So philosophically, that's probably the next thought in this whole thing is what do those guys need to do if they're not part of the play, if they're not part of the run, if it's a literally a two-man concept to the right in terms of a pass concept, and I'm not looking to the left, it's not a progression read, it's a two-way option to the right. Why do those guys on the left need to do anything? Can they just turn eyes and jog it off and find the ball, get set as fast as they can? And as the play caller, I'm going to go to the left the very next play, whether it's a run or it's the same exact play to them to the left the very next play. Knowing that now the ball was maybe moved to the right hash and now I got these guys to the field. Now I'm just going to run to them, give those guys a second. You know what I mean? And just play a game that way. I think the wide splits really help that. I think the guys understanding, is it a full field read in a pass concept? Is it a one side read in the pass concept? Can the other side just hang, find the ball, get spotted, get lined up, and let's roll?
Coach, I got a question, and kind of in regards to that. Do you guys even throw quick game anymore, or is all your quick game attached to runs?
No, we'll throw a quick game. I like quick game to be able to get the quarterback set, let the quarterback get the ball out of his hands fast, get him a little bit of confidence going. No, we for sure do throw a quick game. Not expansive, not super, super complex, but slant pitches, some quick rub stuff. As a man answer, get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, some two-man rub pick concepts. But we do. And to be able to take a little bit off the O-line and let them either quick set or cut up front to be able to get the ball out quick. Again, I think the quick game kind of goes in with the touch part of it where, is it even an RPO concept, a 3-by to number 2 or a 3-by to number 1 and be able to kick and bring it back under and back out. Is it some RPOs that are tags that can also be quick touches? And then, but we throw some quick game just to be able to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand. Or, I think when you line up as wide as we do, I think it opens up underneath pockets in the coverage based on the coverage, but opens up some quick things where if you can attack and get into that space really quick. Again, I think it takes a lot off the O-line if you can do that, and it takes a lot off the quarterback if you can just figure out different ways to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand fast.
Good. And you mentioned using wide splits. What's some of the advantages of using wide splits? And if you ran into any trouble in terms of getting double teams and maybe some of your gap scheme stuff or your inside zone?
Yeah, I think the wide splits do two things. One, make you defend the entire field. I think when you're and preface it with this. There's certainly times to get into squeeze and bunches tight for different things. Generally to be able to work back out or to hide some alignments or to hide some things to be able to get in tight. I think LSU did an incredible job this year of getting into some tight bunches and really doing some great things out of it, be able to hide some things. I think for the quarterback, when you're in wide splits, it gives them a really clear picture of what the box looks like. Is it an advantageous box to run the football? Is it not an advantageous box to run the football? I think when you're tight in there, makes it a little bit harder. I think from a pass protection standpoint too, I think it defines who's coming and who's not in the blitz game. It's hard to line up over number 2 and come if you're wide. So I think it defines and cleans up the picture drastically. The other thing I think it does is it forces guys to be out on islands, forces corners to be on islands, forces guys covering the slots to be out on islands, and their help, wherever their help is if their help is out over them, well, then the box is always going to be advantageous to run the ball. If their help is going to be coming from inside out, well, we're going to run vertically as fast as we can. I think it beats a lot of seam and divider rules in terms of teams that play quarters or thirds. Those dividers and those landmarks are wider. A lot of your in-breaking routes never get to the middle of the field. There's wider space in there between the Mike backer and the field backer. There's wider space in there between a boundary safety and a will linebacker. There's more space horizontally to get into. You talk about a quick game, you run slants, there's a lot more space in there. So, if your linebackers are going to work out and try to match out in a zone type scheme, well, then you got an advantageous box to run the football. I think it clearly defines who you're going to on your zone doubles, or if you're running gap schemes, it clearly defines who you're going to. I think the odd schemes, as teams have gotten into a lot more odd and odd stack variations and odd robber variations, I think are you're kind of dividing the defense and forcing them to declare where they're going to go, where they're going to be pre-snap. Lining up fast and wide at the same time, I think, is an even bigger advantage, because now there's a lot less of, man, I'm going to look like I'm coming and then back out. There's a lot less disguising with the safeties, because again, your dividers, your landmarks are so much wider now that you kind of got to get to where you're going to be if you're going to be there. So I think those are all the advantages. I think it opens up huge lanes in the run game until teams get in and play man free. Well, then now those guys are truly, truly, truly on islands.
So this is real quick. I know we got a couple of questions here in the chat we'll get to. For your O-line, what are your splits that you teach? Is it 3 feet, a yard? What do you guys? Yeah,
based on the play, to be honest with you, they're not wide. They're not wider than normal.
Okay.
It really does depend on the what you're trying to do.
So you guys aren't doing like what Washington State does, or some teams that do like that. Okay.
We're not. And to be honest with you, we played those guys in the Alamo Bowl 2 years ago. They've even kind of gotten out of that a little bit.
Okay.
Got a question here from one of our viewers. He's talking about communication from the box all the way down to the sideline. Is there any tricks to the trade or anything that you're doing to speed up the process of communication, or is it just your one-word tags, really?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you're doing is as you call the play, understanding, or at least having a really, really good idea of where that play is going to end up. I think it's easier to see and feel from the box of, man, I'm on the left hash. I call inside zone to the left. I know that ball's going to be on the left hash. I'm on the left hash. I call outside zone to the right. I know that ball's going to be somewhere from the middle to the right hash. I'm on the left hash and I call a 2-man option concept to the right. I know if it's incomplete, it's going to be on the left hash. I know if it's complete, it's going to be on the right hash. It's just having an idea from up there, being able to see the parts move and where's that play going to end up, and knowing that as soon as that ball's down and that the ball carrier's handing that ball to the I've got to call in the very next play. I've got the very next play at the tip of my tongue, knowing where the ball's going to end up. I think that's the biggest key to the whole thing, is having the next play and knowing, do I need to move any parts to get to that play? Priority being, can I not move any parts? If I got to move the tight end, I got to move the tight end. But the tight end is the guy that's literally got to know, man, based on the play, based on the run play, where do I line up? Based on the pass play, where do I line up? And 95% of it is, where's the slot receiver? Am I with him or am I on the other side? And not moving that slot if you absolutely don't have to. And going back to the very first thing I said, if you can have a tight end that can play in space, not where your slot and him are interchangeable, the less you move the slot, the more you can play fast. So the one word calls, and if you absolutely have to move guys and you want to get, there's specific plays you want to be able to get into based on truly based on personnel, then you call the formation and the play as you normally would in a normal offense. But if you don't have to, then don't. Roll with it. Leave the guys where they are. But I think that's the biggest thing, is from the box.
Yes. Personally, Coach, I've been jotting down some notes here and had some questions. My last question I had personally is really just one that, I guess is more of a philosophical question of what you like to do personally, or what you'd recommend doing, but it pertains to 4-minute offense. Do you like getting in a 4-minute offense, slowing the tempo down, being able to kind of take the air out of the ball, or do you just trust what you do and trust what your kids are comfortable with? And if it is the fact that you do like to do that 4-minute offense, do you take a large portion of your time even practicing at that slower tempo to get used to that?
Yeah, so we don't have a bunch, but one of the things we will practice is a sugar huddle. So dead ball, we'll sugar huddle, meaning the outside guys are already out at their spots. They'll see the signal, the tight end, the slot, everybody else, the core is in the sugar huddle. And then you can control it as the play caller in terms of the tempo. Because you call it whenever you're ready for it to be run. So that's built in. We practice that in inside drill. We practice that when we are going team run against the defense. We'll get in sugar huddle every time so that for the defense, they can actually get lined up and practice what they need to practice. Primarily for the defense is who you're doing it, but at the same time, you're practicing your 4-minute offense. So we'll sugar, and we'll call it from there. To be honest with you, and we'll use 4-minute offense. You're up in a game, use 4-minute offense. You want to get out of the half, and you feel like, man, I just need a first down. I don't want to do anything crazy. We'll sugar and we'll go. We'll sugar on 3rd down if we need to switch personnel. We'll sugar in the red zone if we need to switch personnel. Anytime we switch personnel, we'll sugar huddle. So with that being said, your 4-minute offense is built into the sugar huddle. And then as the play caller, you control it that way. You signal it whenever you're ready, usually with about 14 to 12 seconds on the clock. And so you've got 4-minute offense built into the sugar. Like I said, if what you do is tempo and play fast, to just say we're going to slow it down just to slow it down and change it up, I think you're putting the advantage right back in the defense's hands. I think if you're gonna sugar because you're truly trying to get out of a game in a 4-minute offense set, totally makes sense. But that is our 4-minute.
Another question here we have from one of our viewers. He's talking about 3-by-1 set to the field and going back to boundary runs. Something to attack that force player. Based off as I feel like he's talking about probably the safety. Luke messaged me if I'm speaking wrong, but 4-2-5. A lot of teams are keeping that high safety against one-back personnel and just kind of attacking him, like speed option. What's your thoughts on that, or any other good runs to really attack that guy?
Yeah, outside zone, and being able to outside zone back into the boundary and being able to either push crack on him and control him that way and putting the run on the corner, or if you feel like the corner is not a great tackler, or option him with your outside receiver, running inside zone, knowing that you're running inside zone to it and holding, protecting, or running inside zone away from it and protecting your backside edge, locking that tackle on, and then read him. If he's going to play down into the box, throw it, whether it's a post, a go, a fine grass behind him. And that's what I mean by option routes to the single receiver. If he's going to play high and play over top of the option, then run it. But I like outside zone into the boundary and controlling him with the single receiver, or running inside zone generally away, and then just reading him and throwing the single off of him. Some counter at him, GT counter at him, knowing that you better, if you're going to throw option off of him, you better get rid of the ball quick, or just GT counter and push cracking him and again flooding it out to the corner. So outside zone as a zone scheme, and I would say GT counter as a gap scheme, and controlling him with the single.
I hope that answers your question, Luke, there. I guess I kind of lied here a little bit about my own personal question. It kind of brought back one to me. I know there's been a lot of people going back and forth on both ways, whether pin and pull or to full flow zone, outside zone. Does being fielder boundary change it to you? I know I've seen some people, if the front dictates and they're able to go full flow zone to the boundary, they'd like to do that, opposed to pin and pull to the field. Especially against 4-2-5, where you got that buzz down safety that's coming hard and playing a heavy run support, being able to have the ability to maybe put your foot in the ground and go north off a weak shoulder or something. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think against defenses that move a bunch up front, full flow outside zone is really good, and letting the running back read it out, sort it out, read whether you got a tight end there or not, but read the ghost tight end, read the C gap block of the tackle and work in off of that. I think there's a place for that. I think teams that move a bunch, odd fronts that you feel like move a bunch, 4 down fronts that move a bunch, full zone, outside zone is to me always been the answer. Against teams that play a little bit more up the field and are really attacking and don't move quite as much, I think the pin and pull, especially if you've got a tight end or a fullback or an H-back or whatever you want to call it, that can sort through it, the pin and pull outside zone back to the field where you can truly put stakes in the defense and reach the defensive end, reach to kick them, is a really good answer. I think having both is the way to go, and figuring out, to me, the pin and pull deal is always in. And if you're playing an odd defense that doesn't move a bunch, or you can catch a shade all the time, the pin and pull is awesome, because you've got either a reach or a B gap open. If it's a team that moves a bunch, I think you've got to have full flow outside zone. And I also think you got to be able to throw off of that boundary safety that comes down. I know we just talked about it, but if you got a single receiver that can at least read the corner and figure out what he's doing and make a fast decision, and leave the safety read on the quarterback to be able to attack that, I think it's absolutely huge. And leave it as an option rather than calling a post off that safety, I think is huge, to be able to throw a comeback or a stop or whatever you want to call it.
I agree. I like that. All right, guys. Coach Golesh, if there's anything else that you'd like to hit on, now's your time, guys. If you have any more questions, drop them. We'll be here for a few more minutes, but we're going to start wrapping this thing up. Before we sign off on here, Coach Golesh, just like to thank you for coming on, being a part of this,
Hey,
reaching
Trevin.
and giving us some philosophical ideas and some I think in the high school game, the tempo offense is kind of
something that everyone's a little bit struggling with. I know here in Ohio, our play clocks recently changed to the 40 countdown continuous, and I know it changed people's philosophy on tempo offense. So
Trevin, hey, I got two questions, I'll throw in at you, Coach, that I wrote down while you were talking. First thing is, are you guys running any duo stuff this year? I know that's kind of been in vogue in the clinic season. A lot of guys are talking about that. And then the last question is, what coverage or structure defensively is giving you guys the most trouble?
Sure. Tell me, when you say duo stuff, what do you mean by that?
So, like, where you're getting two double teams with, like, say you're playing a 4-2 box, you're basically just running power with guard tackle double back to the mic, and then center guard back to the will, and then you're going to kick out with your sniffer, your tight end. That's been something I know that a lot of people I've talked to or want to start implementing, because Alabama run a good bit of it.
Yeah, you're talking about like power no puller.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your second question was
just what structure or coverage is giving you most trouble? So if you guys had more trouble against the one high, against the stuff you guys did at Iowa State.
Yeah. So the power no puller, really, we invested a bunch of time into it at Iowa State, studied a bunch of it. Really good. I think if you've got tight ends that can block on the edges, it is a really good play. Very similar to inside zone in terms of what the line is doing. When you go fast, I think any gap scheme, power no puller, if you could group it into that, you've really got to be able to ID where you're going, right? Counters in that mode, powers in that mode, kind of. But you've got to ID where those doubles are going. When you go fast, like really fast, I think you at times can get yourself a little bit of trouble that way. And I'm not saying not to do it. I think your guys have got to be really comfortable, and you better have a really good idea of what structure you're going to get. Because if you're not sure of the exact structure you're going to get, I would stay away from things where you truly have to ID and you're not staying on tracks. And I'm not saying you shouldn't ID where the mic is and where the double is going, because on inside zone, you got to understand where the double's going as well. But inside zone, outside zone, you can get a lot less trouble if you put the backside linebacker on a profile tackle on a running back and you get 4 to 5. Man, that's a great play. If you miss ID on a gap scheme where you're going, you got a free hitter in the hole. I think that always becomes a problem. So you just got to be really, really careful and really smart. If you don't have a great idea of what the structure is going to be, maybe a first-year defensive coordinator or your first year playing really fast or playing with wide splits and you got no idea what they're going to do, I would just totally stay away from it. If you're a little bit slowed down where you've got time and you've got a tight end that can block, then the power no puller is a great play. It's a great answer. You end up being able to beat up the first level players, read a second level player and go. I think it fits right into an option game type thought. And then in terms of the biggest I won't say issue, but the biggest thing you end up seeing when you're playing fast, you're playing with wide splits, the general answer is to play man free, because I think you feel like you can stop the run game. You got an extra hitter and you feel like you've at least got bodies on everybody. Now, awesome. If that's the answer, then we're going to find the weak link and we're going to attack them. If you got no weak link, if we're playing Alabama and there's no weak link, it can be a long day anyways. But generally one of those guys is going to be the worst one. And then you got to figure out formationally, how can you get your best one on their worst one and go to work. But man free, I would say, is the general answer, because people are so afraid to get guys uncovered. With that being said, then, double moves and being able to run by people and isolating one-on-one is a really, really simple answer. You've got to be able to get off press because if you play man free and guys will press, you got to be able to get off press. So if you can get off on releases and be able to win off the line, you got a really, really good shot. So working that and having that built into what you do weekly is a huge deal. Hopefully that answers your question. And before I go,
Yeah, that's perfect, Coach. Thank you.
If anybody, I told Trayvon I didn't want to put any film on. It's kind of our head coach's philosophy not to just broadcast what we do. If anybody, is dying to get in and sit down and watch some film and really go in depth on how we truly call it and those things, just shoot me an email and we'll find some time. It looks like we'll be home here for another month. But I'll always find an hour if there's an offensive staff that wants to sit down and talk ball. I'll always find an hour. I'm from Ohio. I'm an Ohio guy. I got no more appreciation for anybody in the country than coaches in Ohio. So if anybody wants to sit down and truly throw some film on, talk one-on-one, or as an offensive staff, I'll gladly do it.